Hey, what's up guys, this is Liam or Weagle on your Overwatch, back with a new video. Today we're going to be talking about Horizon, the map that's giving people a lot of problems from a lot of different angles. I know that some people struggle with attack and some people struggle with defense. So today we're going to talk about the first point defense, because I know a lot of people really struggle holding it, and have some examples from multiple ranks from a couple of different perspectives on how you can defend this. So hopefully I can help you guys out. We're going to talk about a static defense, we're going to talk about more of a divey defense too. I'll start with a Torbjorn static defense because I've found this to be probably the most successful in my games. Now this may change when Doomfist comes in and the meta moves around a little bit, but one thing that's definitely true about this first point is that there aren't really many massive long angles of approach, and when you play close quarters on this point, it presents loads of problems for the enemy team. So we'll talk about team comp just quickly. In the gameplay I'm showing you, it will be some variation of a Torbjorn and an Orisa. You don't always have to have an Orisa with a Torb, but it's pretty good on this point. A Reaper, a D.Va, and then some combination of healers. You can have like a Zen and an Ana, or you could have like a Mercy and a Sombra to hack that health pack on the left for a flanker to run to if you have a flanker. But you generally want kind of close quarters heroes to be on this point to fight. Now what is also quite unique to this point is that Pharah can't really attack it too well. The angles she can take are too short, apart from the angle from the front facing area, which is why we have the Orisa shield set up there. And since Pharah's actual raw damage isn't that great per second, you're generally going to have another shield before she can destroy it. So I recommend at the start of the round, if you're playing a Torbjorn on your team and you have an Orisa, that you actually put your turret near the front of the point and use a shield there. This way, you can charge up your ult pretty quickly, and then when you need to move it to the back of the point as the enemies get closer or a shield gets destroyed, it's a much easier transition. Now, some of you are probably thinking, Weagle, why won't you put it up here in the I'm Super 6 spot? The problem with putting it up high is that when the enemy team just decide to dive the point, Torbjorn's not the best peeling character in the world, and what happens is when you try to make that rotation back to the point with your team, it could be quite a sticky situation for a matchmaking queue to deal with. And that is one issue with this map, is what you're going to see at pro level and what's going to work at a lower level in matchmaking is going to be considerably different, because it's a new map and the meta's shifting all the time. And to be honest, people just haven't played it enough to have figured out all of the best ways to try and do things. I mean, people still struggle with Hanamura, and that's been out a year, so that's why Horizon's giving people problems. So once you've got your defense set up on this point, it's pretty much easy going from there. You always want to move up your turret as Torbjorn, so if it gets destroyed, just try and put it in a slightly different place to before. The back left of the point's quite a good spot. The back right also is. Keeping that turret alive, staying together as a team, and dealing massive chunk damage with shotguns is one very good way to defend this point. It doesn't always work, you won't always full hold, but it's definitely better than what you see in a lot of matchmaking where people try to take that high ground and then they just get rolled straight away, because either A, it's just too hard to coordinate, or B, the enemy team will just go to the point and ignore it, and that rotation for the defensive team back to the point puts them at a massive disadvantage. It's a very hard map to coordinate on, and just too hard, I think, to be able to expect people in matchmaking to be able to do that. So setting up static defense on this point is always a massive win. You're generally going to hold for a few minutes at least, and hopefully you'll see some more full holds from this kind of defense. In terms of what to do when the enemy come at you, the best thing to do is to make sure that your team stay together. You need to fight as a team, keep your healers alive. The turret is there to deal with the flankers that try to get in the backline, so make sure you're somewhere near your turret. Molten Core can hold this point on its own as well, and you have to brawl as a team. You stay together, the Pharah can't get angles, and if you have a D.Va on defense, even if she's your only tank, she can nullify all that damage from the Pharah that might get through anyway, and you don't need like a soldier at all on this point when you're playing it, because the close quarters aspect of it is so powerful that any kind of range damage generally can't do enough. If you've got the D.Va and they have a Widow, you can just try and block some of the shots, and the shield at the front of the point for the most part, or making sure you're behind the shield and not letting that Widow get a wide angle, is the best way to defend it. And of course, the best way to attack it when someone's doing this kind of defense is to get big pickoffs with like a Widow or a Hanzo, or to bait people off of this point. You just need to make sure you stay together, ball up, and block the range damage, which is pretty easy because this point is very tight. The next thing to talk about is, of course, the counter dive kind of a defense, and this as well is Definitely harder to run this kind of a comp. But it is like playing attack on defense. Some people struggle with this concept sometimes. People think that your team are overextending on defense. But one of the main reasons people struggle to defend in Overwatch is because they stand there and let the enemies bring the fight to them. This is exactly that same problem as before with this map. If you stand just up the top there, you're just letting them bring the fight to you. Well, what happens if you have some kind of a counter dive comp and you take the fight to them nearer the choke point that they have to come through? Well, it gives you a lot more results. And the other thing is, if they try to speed past you and go to the point, when you have a counter dive comp, you have that opportunity then to retake with a comp that is facilitated to do so. If you're trying to retake with a Torbjorn and a Reaper, it's pretty rough times. But if you've got a Genji and a Tracer and a Winston and a D.Va on your team, actually coming back to that point to fight it when they've just skipped past you is fairly simple. But they shouldn't even really be able to get to that point. As you'll see in the gameplay I'll show you now, what you want to be doing is taking some poke and wait for a tank to initiate. When a tank does initiate, you take the fight to them. It's just counter dive like you would see on any other map. It's basically an offensive comp and you play it on defense. And people, honestly, at a lot of ranks won't know how to deal with it. The one issue with this theory is, of course, is that it's harder to run because you're not all just balled up. It requires coordination. And when someone does dedicate to some kind of a play here, you need to make sure you follow up with them. So you'll see that me or someone else on my team is poking, but as soon as a Winston dives in or the enemy team has someone that's out in the open, your team then, of course, have to pounce on it. If you start losing one or two or you trade out, you can then go back to the point and take up a perch up on the high ground if you like, because as I say, this comp is way more designed to be able to get around, and then when they come in and you regroup, you can then take the fight to them. This map in terms of 2CP maps actually isn't too bad for the retake. It's of course still a long retake, the enemies still have an advantage, but if you frag out efficiently, there's a much higher chance of you guys being able to get back in the fight to fight on the point by the time the enemy team have also regrouped. Things I'd be careful for here are someone like Symmetra. You'd think that she's really good on this point because of all the close quarters and how it works, but quite simply, a Winston just nullifies Symmetra so much on this point that when they come to the point and they do fight you, they are going to destroy all your turrets straight away. If you are playing against a comp that doesn't have a Lucio or dive tanks though, then Symmetra on this back point is also going to work really well. Heroes like Tracer that can get to the health packs are always good. Tracer's just so meta, it's outrageous. You could play a soldier here on defense too if you would like, but I recommend you make the enemy come into your death ball and play your way. If you're going to play static on this map, then make sure you set up the comp that facilitates that play. The worst thing you can do is play at a place at the top on the high ground that requires you to peel and not having the heroes to do so. Recommend a D.Va at all times here because she's just simply amazing. So some of you are probably thinking, Weagle, you're telling us how to defend it, but how do we attack it? Well, I will have to do a full video on this or else this would be like a week long. But if we go for a rundown quickly, it ties into a lot of the stuff that I've already said. If the enemy is set up on that high ground, you kind of have two options. You can go to the point and bait them down if that's the comp that facilitates that. So if they're trying to run a Torbjorn up there, well, you can pretty much just ignore it, go to the point and then brawl them there. That's where the advantage is going to be for your team in that situation. Of course, if they don't have a Torb and they're just kind of spread out on the high ground, you can just take a full dive comp, either go up the stairs or some of you up the stairs and some of you dive. You can get straight into that enemy team and just try and frag out from there, because what will often happen is you'll have a few people up on the normal perched high ground, but then maybe someone on the point or someone off on their own. It's matchmaking, that's what always happens. So if you either isolate that target that's on their own or just take a 6v5 fight because someone is off on their own, then that's usually the best way to win this point. If they're running the static Torbjorn horrible defense that I've taught you all how to do, then that's where there becomes some issues. What I personally do in matchmaking is I pick Tracer and I find an opening somewhere. I will come in from the side, do some trash damage. I'll try to bait out an enemy to either win a 1v1 or simply charge up an ultimate so that I can pulse bomb the Torb and his turret. That is also very successful. You can full dive into this, but it is very difficult. It requires a 6-man coordinated effort, and honestly, honestly, the best solution I usually see to this problem is for someone to take a Hanzo and a Widow. If the Widow gets a pick at the start, then that gives the rest of your team the opportunity to dive in. I don't recommend you take some horrible static floor-based comp. I recommend you still stick with dive, make sure you've got a diva, and then you can have your Widow take up a perch and shoot at things while you guys swarm the backline. As long as your Widow hits shots, well, do they ever, but if your Widow hits shots, you will be seeing a lot more success from your dive comp, because oftentimes what happens is it's hard to take out the turret, but when you're in that backline taking a fight, that Widow's got that massive line of sight. She has so many opportunities that she's surely going to hit a headshot. So guys, I hope this helped you out. Do let me know if it was too much theory and not enough gameplay examples. I'm not sure where this map's going in terms of if the strategies will change, if we'll see more from the pro play, or if the meta will swap. The same as always, guys, playing as a team is the way to victory. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Be sure to check out our Twitter and our Discord, where you guys can find the Torbjorn main of your dreams. Be sure to hit that bell icon so you guys get notified when our videos go live. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and have a great day as always. Take care and peace, people.